Hi, so today I'm going to show you how to use the array tool. We'll start with the grid array, quickly make a box, use the offset to define the distance in between the objects, and then there's the axes, which you can, there's the Y and the X, and then the Z. So you can just put whatever number you would like to be in there, and yeah, make the offset is percentage of the length of the object. So yeah, you can rotate them on their local axis, and you can also rotate them like the whole object. This is a bit skippy, so you can't quite see, but this is what happens here. It's just the whole object rotating there on a 45-degree angle. So it's pretty basic, and you can work it out quite easily. The next thing that we do is using the randomization and the scale. So this is to kind of quickly and procedurally model a city. You can basically just make a variant of each axis and you'll get something that looks like this. So, 50, 50, 50%. So it can be half as short, half as wide, half as deep. And yeah, play around with those settings. And yeah, you can get a kind of quite convincing group of buildings quite easily. And then I'll show you a little bit later how to put this onto a topography and also how to put on textures. So yes, this is the array on surface modifier. So first we've got to turn this plane into a topography, which I just do here with soft selection. It's quite simple and easy to do this. So if this is for the background of a render, or yeah, I don't know, for all kinds of landscapes, grounds. And then you can use the array modifier to, and I've just kept that array on, but see, we turn it off and we pick the surface, boom, and then all of those objects have been placed onto the surface. So I quickly go and fix it because they're all looking a bit thin, but you can see because it's still in a grid, it kind of simulates roads, the differences in heights, and then the fun thing is that the array modifier can do is we can do the same thing with materials. So what we do next is basically get a whole lot of different bitmaps and use a V-Ray multi-sub texture and just connect that to a material. You can do it, I've connected it to a whole lot because I wanted to see if it would translate just the images into anything else. It didn't really seem to, apart from the displacement. It has a kind of strange effect initially that you'll see that yeah, there we go. So I go and get rid of that. And the thing is, you'll notice that some of them are still white and gray. That's because I have not defined the range on the material well enough. So I go back and do that next. Yeah, see, some of them are still white and gray. That's because in the multi-sub texture, which is get ID from random by element, and then the number of textures you have. Yeah, there you go. I mean, obviously you could use better textures, more actual city textures. These are just some that I had left over. Then I quickly make something for the ground. Yeah, it's a quite interesting quick way to model it. And obviously you could use the the face select multi-sub texture system that I went through in the other tutorial on the ground. If you wanted to have a bit more control, you could see it's got a big displacement on it. I just take that off. Looks quite cool though, like dunes. But yeah, there's our city. And obviously this only took me about 5 minutes, and so if you put a little bit more time into it using this system, you could get something quite convincing. So yeah, that's what it looks like. And yeah, if you use the surface modifier, the surface material, you could like make some areas roads, some areas parks, you know. So this is the radial array, which I go through. By using the pivot, you can change the radius. You can do the radius within the modifier as well, but I like to actually just move the pivot, because if you're putting things on top of each other, you can center everything quite easily that way. So yeah, I'm just kind of showing you the basic different there's obviously the different axis, and you can decide whether you're going to make it a full circle, 70% of a circle, all those kind of things. And then we have similar incremental alternating progressive rotations as we did with the grid. What I find these good for, the spline, which I don't actually go into in this video, is similar. You can make quite good randomization like that. Particularly if you use like non-rectilinear shapes, maybe like a dust storm or whatever frozen in time. Yeah, quite good for doing things like this. But I just go through this quickly. This is probably the coolest bit of it. Using like scale, and I don't know, this makes it kind of like Nautilus shells. You can kind of like do something disappearing into itself. Like if you want, I don't know, wanted to do that. Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, but you know, how useful it is for urban modeling, I'm not sure. And yeah, the next thing we go into is the very cool philo sign modeling. So that's what it is. It's basically using the Fibonacci sequence. And yeah, you can create all kinds of very cool things. Yeah, and doing all the things with scale that we've done before with the other ones. But yeah, and then obviously also in this one I'm changing how high up it's going in the x-axis. So yeah, you can do like a similar thing with like stuff disappearing off into itself, kind of like quite ethereal or whatever. But the coolest thing you can do with this is natural forms, like flowers. So I just go into how to make a flower head. It's an interesting basis for urbanism as well, but you know, I just start with something small. But yeah, here we've got our kind of like ascending floating tower thing. And yeah, you can just kind of play with the settings that we've already gone through with this. And then I'll show you, yeah, just how to make a flower. So yeah, I just start using the soft selection again. Make a little oh yeah, you need to make sure you're picking faces. And yeah, the bigger the thing you select tends to be a bit more yeah, you'll get a smoother shape, so don't make your offset too small. Just kind of pull it, fiddle around with it until it looks like something you want. And then I just put a turbo smooth on it, smooth everything out, and boom, you got a little petal. So it's just about kind of working out what direction, and yeah, you'll be using the local rotation, so you want them all to rotate in one direction from their own axis. And in this case it's from the center, so that's also why I don't use the radius in the thing, but change the pivot point. So yeah, just I kind of feel like, oh, it's too big, so I move the pivot point in. There it is. Kind of looking a bit more like a flower. At this point I realize I've also got the backwards, and that it's going to be smaller in the middle, and then larger on the outside, so I could go and fix that. And you can just do that in scaling incrementally. Just, yeah, 101 is what I do, so it only gets 1% bigger, but seems to be quite a lot. And so yeah, I just try and work out what will make it look most. Yes, there we go. It's going to look a bit like a flower. And then yeah, I go in and I do the same thing with the material editor. I'm just using the same materials as before, but obviously you could use, oh, the displacement's still on. Turn that off. You could use use like a whole bunch of different slight variations in color to really get a quite realistic, natural form. But yeah, even just with totally random things, it's quite like effective. It kind of reminds me like a peacock's tail or something like that. There's a few other settings you can like have some more variation just to like make it look even more natural. Like things aren't perfect, things get knocked by the wind and stuff like that. And then yeah, obviously changing the seed will just kind of change however the pattern is working if you've got some variation. Yeah, and so basically that's all I do. I think I double it up and just try and get it a little bit more convincing looking. You can obviously like spread things out more. Kind of ends up looking a little bit like an artichoke. But yeah, that's basically the Phyllotaxis modifier in the array tool. So yeah, I do a few more little things, but all of this is just to make it slightly more like an actual flower. Yeah.